které se bude
Martin
věnovat
and I would like to welcome you at the Forum of Korean Czech Forum for the Future, and perhaps we could...
Welcome you to the Fórum Hospodářské noviny. I'm Martin Ehla from Czech Economic Daily, and at the beginning, one organization, we will put down the masks because it will be then much more easier to understand us, purely from the technical point of view. Let me welcome here on the Forum of Hospodářské noviny our co-guest or ambassador of Republic of Korea, Mr. Taejinin Kim. Let me welcome Senator and Chairperson of Subcommittee on Energy, Transport, and of the Committee of Economic Affairs, Agriculture and Transport of the Czech Senate, Senator Hana Žáková. Let me welcome former Prime Minister Jan Fischer.
Good evening.
Let me welcome Daniel Procházka, Chief Operations Officer, Škoda Doosan Power.
Dobrý den.
At the beginning, we would start with a couple of questions about the actual relation between Czech Republic and Korea, because even we are for about more than 1 year, our relations are physically restricted by the pandemic situation. I think that the relations in the digital world and in the society are developing as well, as one of the proof of that development is that Squid Game, the Korean produced show on Netflix, is one of the most watched also in Czech Republic. So I would just make one quick poll here. Who has watched at least one part of Squid Game here? Okay, you know more or less about what we are talking about. No, it's not only Squid Game, it's also K-pop. I have witnessed myself when visiting South Korea this part of the pop culture and industry. It's also the success in the film industry. So my first question to Ambassador is what else we can expect as a kind of export of Korean culture in the world? So what will you send us, as a next surprise?
I don't know exactly, but there are many reviews and analysis about this great popularity of the Korean pop culture. As you know, we like BTS, we like Blackpink, we like Parasite, Korean movie, and recently we saw many of them saw the Squid Game. And there are many talented producers and very active investment of the production companies there in Korea. And they have been very active in the Asian market at the beginning, before we have very solid SNS platform before, quite a good digitalization of the world. And then they were quite much trained and invested. And after that, having the situation that we have very popular and solid SNS platform, now we can export all those Korean contents to the world market. And maybe that's the secret of our, Korean pop culture. Now we have many movies, many songs, and many, games. But after that, maybe I can see some, classic culture or any kind of, things you can imagine. But we'll continue to produce these kind of very popular movies and songs for some time, for the time being.
Another thing which is connecting us, unfortunately, all over the globe is the pandemic. South Korea was one of the countries where we have seen quite innovative solutions in how to deal with the pandemic, how to tackle that issue. I remember myself, when writing last year about Korean drive-in testing stations, and a colleague of mine was then asking, based on my article, Czech main hygienic doctor if they will introduce also this testing drive-ins, and she was crazy. What do you mean by drive-in testing stations? And within 2 weeks they were here. Mm-hmm. So I don't. So I think that there is an inspiration. Could we also find now some new technologies or new developments which we can be inspired by from Korea?
Korea has been very aggressive from the beginning of the pandemic, and we do very aggressive 3T, strategy by having good testing and good, treatment, and also good, tracing. So all those kind of, three things. All together, we could, face with this difficulty in a very efficient way. But behind the secret of having a very good control of the situation was very much high alertness of our citizens. They follow the rules. They take the responsibility as a citizens. So that's why we can be taking control of the situation from the beginning. But every country has up and downs. And now the Czech Republic has so much, on the difficult situation. But nobody knows who will, what will the situation in the next phase of our pandemic. But as you can imagine, there has been very, very, consistent policy of incentive for those who are vaccinated. So that's why now we have many people vaccinated, up to 80% of our population to be vaccinated fully at this moment. So I just want to let the Czech people know that there should be some positive, orientation about the vaccination instead of negative, sentiments about it. So you should be positive rather being negative. That's what that's my message.
Positive about being negative. Just, fun fact, before I went to this forum, the Austrian public TV and radio has announced that they will make a lottery for those who will get vaccinated from the October 1st to the December 31st, and the winner of the lottery will get either electric car or a house and some other stuff. So it's a positive inspiration from the other side. So how would you say now the Czech-Korean relations are, in which state we are now when dealing with the pandemics, when dealing with the economic issues? Mm-hmm. How would you say where we are now? Because we don't have flights. There were many direct flights, many tourists coming from Korea to Prague. So how would you say, are we again at the very beginning, or we have some already work done and on which we can build more?
Our two countries were heavily hit by the pandemic. We have more than 400,000 Korean tourists coming to Prague every year, but because of this pandemic, it has been reduced to 1/10 of that number. So it's very much, surprising to all of us. But surprisingly, our mutual trade has not been hit very much. Rather, it was increased, and then the total trade volume of 2012 has increased more than 20% compared to the trade volume previous year, 2019. It's very much remarkable. It means that Korean investments are still here, and all those Korean companies, they want to continue their investment and strengthen their investment. And if you look at the case of Hyundai Motors, they increased their investment. And they recently introduced a new production line to produce the new type of cars, electric cars and and then hybrid cars. And that's why they never experienced any kind of stopping of their production. It's kind of the, hints by which you can see very positive trend of the Korean investment. And by doing that, we could have those kind of consistent trend of our developing bilateral relationship. And then even under this difficult situation, I don't think there would be any big change or any kind of surprise to us. it will be continued.
I was laughing when I was reading recently a review of 2 electric cars, one produced by Škoda, one produced by Hyundai, and the reviewer said these are both Czech cars. So it's like adoption of your investment. But what about these direct flights, Prague? So how do you see the prospect? I know it's quite hard now to predict, but many people also here maybe would be interested to know.
Yeah, the main customers are Korean tourists. That's why the Korean Air decides to stop the direct flights between Seoul and Prague. So if they can secure more number of the Korean tourists coming to Prague, they surely resume their flights sooner or later. But very much, interestingly, from yesterday, the Czech government decides to recognize the Korean vaccine certificates, which is very crucial to resume the return of the Korean tourists to this region. After things come down like this, you have quite a number of the infections daily nowadays, but if you have more, stable situation sometime soon, and then we can see more number of the Korean tourists, and then definitely after that, soon after that, Korean Air will resume their direct flights.
Hopefully so. I would have another question, which is maybe kind of a futuristic one, but I was interested when there was about a couple of weeks ago, Taiwanese business delegation. They were quite interested in the different kind of investments, among them the semiconductor industry or chips. I was thinking if Korean producers of the semiconductors wouldn't be also interested in this kind of a new thing, because European Union wants to build its own capacities because of the pandemic experience. Do you have any news for us on this field or any suggestions?
Actually, it's quite an area of the Korean private companies' decision making. So it's not my area to deliberate.
But maybe you know something about it.
But there are active discussion between Korean and US companies about our Korean companies' investment in the United States in terms of the semiconductors, because now Samsung and all the other semiconductor companies, they want to expand their production in the market of the United States. It was caused by very aggressive, approach by the Biden administration in the US. But I don't see any kind of approach by the Korean companies like Samsung to this European market for the production of the semiconductors. But they are very active in the production of the batteries for the electric car. But we know we all experience the difficulty of having the right amount of the semiconductors for the cars and the vehicles. So they know that there would be quite a good chance for them to make some access to this European market. And then we are now let them know all those kind of difficult situations here in the European market. So sooner or later, the company like Samsung will make a right decision about it. That's my belief.
And let's get to another big decision we are expecting here in Czech Republic. I don't know if sooner or later, but definitely it will be made, and it's about the new nuclear power plant in Czech Republic, and we can broaden this debate to the whole panel. How do you see now the chances of the Korean company in the Czech tender? I know it's hard to predict what the new government, how the new Czech government will take, will approach the topic. But generally speaking,
I'm confident that the Korean companies have a very, high chances, and it was shared by many people here in this town. And even in the summit meeting recently held in Budapest, that was attended by Prime Minister Babiš and my President Moon, they shared about this topic of nuclear cooperation, and they made a right assessment of what's going on about our mutual nuclear cooperation. And from the beginning to the end, Mr. Babiš made clear that our KHNP, the Korean nuclear companies, efforts and outreach has been very much successful, and he asked us to do the same from now on. And it means that they are now thinking highly of the active participation of our Korean companies. And if we continue to do that, there would be very much high chances for us to take the grip. So
I would put this question to you, but I would like to ask other panelists to think about this. What would you see as a main advantage and main disadvantage of Korean solution? Let's be frank and not to speak only about how Korean solution might be good, but also to put up some things which you see as a kind of weak points. Mm-hmm. Starting from you, Ambassador.
Okay. I want to begin by saying that we are on time and within budget. We have the experience of exporting our technology to UAE market. You know, UAE doesn't have any kind of, infrastructure about the nuclear, development or something like that. But by having all those kind of, cooperation, we have been very successful in building up 4 nuclear power plants in the in UAE market. And without any change of our original plan or something like that in terms of the budget and in terms of the timing. So now it's the kind of the requirements on the part of the Czech governments that you need to secure the nuclear power plants very much according to the plan you have right at this moment. And from that perspective, the Korean companies will be the best partner.
And the disadvantage?
I cannot say that.
Prime Minister Fischer.
First of all, thanks for inviting me to this forum. That's the first thing. Second thing, very briefly, I think to have a pretty broader room to exchange the opinion, not only here in the panel, but also with you. The first sentence of ambassadors, let's say, input here was, and that's very remarkable, just on time and in a budget. That's the most important advantage which Koreans are bringing to us and to any other market. If you want a reference, if you want an example, look at the Emirates, look at the Baraka power plant or power station. The first block has been finished. There was some very short delay caused by the delay of the training of the domestic personnel, which was extremely demanding, and the Emirates authorities actually stick on the involvement of the domestic personnel. Personnel has to be trained. I visited Baraka. I saw it. It was the fantastic sensation because we were in the first block dome before putting it into the service. So to get into the reactor space, that's absolutely exciting. But it was clearly, if you want to have they have reference, that's important thing, summarizing it. South Korea solution, I mean technical solution, has been licensed in the US and has been licensed in the by European Commission or by European authorities. This is very important thing. So they can do it. They can do it technically. They have a good knowledge, know-how, expertise, research. I saw the capacities or capabilities which have been built up in Korea. There is a lot of them in the south of the country, and so based on this reference, on this history, on this know-how, I think that the potential of the Koreans as the could be said partner for delivery of the nuclear, let's say, extension, or let's speak replacement of the Dukovany capacities. That's something that there is no there is no problem. What is, just if you allow me, I deliberately used the wording replacement. It's not the extension anyway, and I think that there is a lot of people from energy community, and they know pretty well that this replacement of the one block of Dukovany is not the solution of the future of the Czech energy as a whole. We need to speak, and very swiftly, I would say. And authorities, Czech authorities, have to speak also about the fifth block of Dukovany and about Temelín extension. That's just what we were talking about. If you want, what did you want? Disadvantage? No, I don't see. No, just very seriously, I don't see any serious disadvantage which the Koreans would face in time being, actually.
OK, paní senátorko, hlavní výhody z vašeho pohledu korejského řešení a nevýhody.
Madam Senator, the main advantages and disadvantages of the Korean solution from your side. Once again, a very good afternoon from the Třebíč region, which I represent in the upper chamber of the Parliament of the Czech Republic. Thank you very much for the invitation to this event. As for the main advantages, I see great diligence in the South Korean companies and great references. It's a nation very close to me because we can see the effects in our region. Not only do South Koreans help us in community planning, but they invest a lot in sports and healthcare. I recall a delegation of students from South Korea who paid us a visit in 2018 and 2019 and helped in the Třebíč hospital in old people's homes as well. They are fantastic, and what I also admire about South Korea is that they have a high education attainment in young people. We have a lot to learn from them. As for disadvantages, the only disadvantage that I can possibly think of that probably won't influence the decision, but that may cause some unwillingness or fear about letting South Korea in the tender is that in Europe, as far as I know, there is no nuclear power plant built by South Korean companies. But I know that they are extremely capable and that they have built NPPs elsewhere and that they are of the highest standard. And then I would mention human resources, because to build an NPP is one thing, but who's going to operate it is another thing, and it's not really easy. We have been awaiting a government decision for a long time, and I do hope that the new government, to be formed hopefully soon, will finally announce a tender for Dukovany. And it's a shame that we are discussing only one unit, because the EIA was for Unit 5 as well as 6, because Unit 5 will only replace half of Dukovany capacity. This doesn't solve anything. We would need both Unit 5 and Unit 6. Both of these units. And financially, I think that it would be much better to build both units at the same time and not just one. And one more thing to mention about South Korea. We had a chance at the highest level in the Senate to welcome the president of the National Assembly of South Korea with the delegation, and I must say that they showed great interest in the site and were joined by the progress made. And when we had our meeting, I told them that roughly by the end of June there would be 3 companies approached with filling in a questionnaire, and South Korea was the first to start working on responding to the questions. And I must say that I really love South Korea and South Koreans as a nation. And if I am to evaluate my role in the Senate. I'm in charge of the subcommittee for energy and transport. I'm the chairperson of the economic committee. And if you recall, this year, the Lex Dukovany, the Dukovany Act, was debated in the Senate. I wasn't really pleased about the nickname that this legislation got. It really was in the Senate for quite a while. There was no willingness to discuss it. And I'm very happy that at last the act was passed with a safety clause. It will need to be ratified by the EC, and I hope that it goes well, because this is yet another step to allow us to build Dukovany. Thank you very much. Mr. Procházka, what are the advantages and disadvantages from your point of view? In English or in Czech?
So I think all the three bidders, I mean, there is no doubt about it, all the three bidders, they have a safe and reliable solution to construct the plant, okay? The differentiation between the, let me say about KHNP, or maybe better, my experience while dealing and working with the Koreans over the last 15 years, compared to the others, I can see in the eagerness to deliver the best result and the timely fulfillment. And then it's not on, nuclear power station, it's definitely a complicated project, but we building with them coal-fired or gas-fired power plant or the solar power plants. The technology is similar. And what I could see or what I could live, the delivery on time, and then the follow-up of the cost and then cost structure and the pricing of the project was always the very most important factor. So that's what I really see as a great advantage. The other one, what I can see from the Korean side, is the absolute politic-free approach to the project, you see. Of course, the Chinese are not here, the Russians are not involved, but this is what I see really. It's a focus on the technology, the price, the delivery time, about not any space for some huge, political influence involvement, So that's what I see as a big advantage. And then disadvantage, I don't really, maybe for my wife, if the KHNP will win it, I will have to travel to Korea more even, so that could be found as a disadvantage, but not, it's just a...
Okay, I will start the second round of questions from your side, because Senator has mentioned the disadvantage, which is no reference within the EU. How big problem from your point of view, or from industry point of view, is this fact?
Like
that there is no Korean reactor being built or under construction within the EU as a kind of reference point.
I don't really.
Because this is the main argument of those who are criticizing the Korean approach. That might be the problem.
Well, really, I see it more from the technical side. Like that. It's important to see the geological surveys and the potential, earthquake zones or whatever. But what's the difference in building the reactor in Saudi Arabia or in China or in the US, compared to the Europe, other than. So from the technical point of view, I don't see any obstacle. I can see how the Korean companies, how they, in our own case, we are owned by the Korean company more than 10 years, and I see how much they are developing it. So it's not really, I don't see any obstacle in these terms.
Prime Minister, do you see the problem that within the EU there is no Korean reference project as a problem?
I think that's better for Koreans and for other sides, let's say, in the process, to have the good reference stemming from Emirates, to have good reference from Korea itself and from other countries where Korea delivered, than to have, and just very frankly speaking, that's better than to have a reference as France has from Finland anyway, with a lot of delays, with a lot of troubles, or as Russia so far has in Paksh So I think that's better to have these kind of references, which I mentioned, than to have some reference in the European Union. The important is what I said before. They are licensed by European authorities. And it was very important. There was some debate organized by Parliament. I don't know whether it was before COVID. I don't know just the date of it. Organized by 2 or 3 committee in the lower chamber. It was at the time when Mr. Meal was introduced as at that time newly appointed envoy special envoy for nuclear energy and for Dukovany. And what I want to talk about is the statement that Ms. Drábová at that time actually did, having said that during the assessment which her office will have to do in the process a little bit later, the office and she will not stick on the reference to some place which is located in the territory of the European Union. This is very strong, this is very important, and this is very serious. So actually, I don't see any serious or decisive problem that so far hasn't been built up any Korean capacity on the territory of the European Union.
Ambassador, what's your diplomatic answer to those who are saying there is no reference project within the European Union?
Yeah, Emirates, reference could be a good example I could explain to you in, emphasizing that there are no disadvantage at all for the Czech government to have the Korean, style nuclear power plant. Because, as you know, in UAE there are no infrastructure at all about the nuclear. And also they need to build their nuclear power plant in the middle of the desert, nothing. But we introduced many manpower from all over the world, and also we had a very good, cooperation with major countries like the United States in terms of the technology. So that's kind of the success we made in the UAE for having a very successful ongoing operation and building of the nuclear power plant over there. And in the Czech Republic, you have infrastructure. You have already quite a good infrastructure to build upon to build a nuclear power plant. So it's easier solution for us to have quite a good nuclear cooperation with the Czech government and Czech companies. So, it would be easier for us to have a nuclear cooperation with the Czech Republic rather than with the UAE or something like that. So in that regard, we don't have any problem. And also, right at this moment, our reference unit is APL 1014. That's our original model. But according to your demands, we remodeled it to APL 1000, which would be built in the Czech Republic. And then we are now making our best efforts to secure the certificates from EUR, which will be finished sometime at the end of 2022. It will be the timing quite well before your final decision for the bidding process of this new nuclear power plant in Dukovany. So I'm sure that there would be any technological problem in having the Korean nuclear power plant in Dukovany.
You mentioned the time frame. I was recently speaking with the director of business development of British company Rolls-Royce, which is developing small modular reactors. They say that they will have them on the market within the 10 years. NuScale, American company, also developing small modular reactors. They say they will have them on market until the end of the 20s. They even signed the agreement with the Romanian government recently to deliver first one in 28. Question to all of you, Senator, maybe if you feel pressured too much on this issue, how do you see this small modular reactors as a kind of a new competition for the traditional new reactors in terms of commercialization of the nuclear energy through new way, because they will be very probably much cheaper. They will be built in the factory, then delivered to the place, so there is no danger of prolonging the construction, because every reactor now is quite unique. You mentioned, Ambassador, that it will have to be, for the Czech requirements, remodeled, redesigned. So do you see this kind of new development? Because when we look at the schedules and at the time frame, from my point of view, I would rather broaden the view, not just looking at the big players or the 3 players in game now, but think about the Rolls-Royce, NuScale, some other projects. Do you see it as a competition already, or it's like, maybe we start from the industry point of view, because this is more technical issue now than the political one.
Yeah. So for us, absolutely, it's an important, discussion. As an equipment supplier, we are following all of those. You mentioned Rolls-Royce, and then NuScale. By the way, our company, our parent company, holds like 10% share in the project. So definitely, this is of our highest interest. But we are also talking to the Russians sometimes for the other projects. Of course, there are some barriers for us to enter, but the SMR, as we are discussing now, like something new, we should not forget that there are like hundreds of units already used on the ships, on the either military or in the commercial use. So it's not that new. And so as a supplier of the critical equipment for the nuclear power station, for us it's very important. We really looking forward which way we will follow, because of this small modular reactor. In case of Rolls-Royce, for example, it's not small at all. So NuScale will be 60, 80 megawatt, but here we're talking about much more. So the modularity, the faster, the shorter time for the construction is definitely an important, component. But in the Czech Republic, specifically SMR, I think it's a question of next maybe 20 years, to come, and then it will rather be installed in some more abandoned places of the planet, before it comes into the Czech Republic. That's my opinion.
SMRs undoubtedly will have the go-ahead, and they need to be included in the energy policy of the country. So far, the SMRs are not there, because at the time when it was put in place some 7 or 8 years ago, they were being developed and were not tested back then. Canada and Russia are, at the forefront in SMRs, and noted that Bill Gates now wants to indeed build the SMR in the U.S. Well, there is some skepticity about this, whether they'll get the go-ahead for that. But I do believe that SMRs belong in the energy mix and should be included there.
Technically speaking, I think everything has been said, how the landscape actually look. With 2 conclusions you both made. That's let's say, that's the game for the future, not for the next years. And our time for decision making is running out, and we are completely behind schedule. If you look at the history of the decision making about the Czech nuclear energy and nuclear capacities, new nuclear capacities building, that's could be said, a very gloomy story. And now I cannot imagine that any political party or any political group or any political force could come and say, let's stop it, dear guys, let's stop it, nation, and we will be thinking about the new, very progressive and very alluring, very attractive attractive opportunities which come from small modular reactors, which could be, by the way. But here has to be decided because it's decision making 5 minutes after 12, not 5 minutes to 12. That's important. That's important thing. That's reality. That's decision making about the future. That's decision making about the energy balance in the future, with a lot of impacts on the macroeconomy, on the standard of living of this nation. There's the decision making on potential importing or exporting of energy, the balance, the electric energy, and perhaps this decision making about the potential energy poverty. Could happen anyway. So it's nice, it's technically very progressive. It will be, let's say, observed, it will be analyzed, but I cannot imagine at this point that someone could stop and say, okay, we will be waiting.
Ambassador, have you met with this argument, with those within your negotiations in the Czech Republic, that maybe possibly let's think about the small modular reactors first and then big one second, or is it just my wild speculation?
Not at all. I mean, we are now focusing upon having the right nuclear reactors here in the Czech Republic by having the regular type nuclear power plant here in Dukovany. You know, SMR has potential, but it's still too early and premature to predict the right timing of the SMR in our actual market sooner or later. So I heard from our nuclear experts that it's a lot more difficult than to have the perfect self-driving cars here right at this moment. It means that it'll take 10 years. It'll take 10 years or something like that to have very reliable SMR in the future or something like that. So now is our time to focus upon the usual type nuclear reactors rather than focusing upon SMR. That's my personal assessment.
Prime Minister has also touched the topic which is now all above the debates about the energy and future of energy, and this is the question of green energy, or and also the question, is nuclear energy green enough, or is nuclear energy green at all? I would be interested to hear your reflections on this issue from your different perspective, because it's also quite a local topic for many local communities. It's a question of investment into new technologies in the industry. It's a question of general political assessment, what is possible, what is not possible. Today I have read that KEPCO, the nuclear energy company in Korea, is investing quite a lot in the research and development of the new green technologies, which are not necessarily avoiding nuclear and some other, but improving the present technologies. Do you think, maybe let's phrase it like that we are living in kind of energy revolutionary times when any decision about any new energy source will be very quickly looking very old-fashioned, and in case of nuclear power plant, it's aging quite quickly because it's being built long time because of the nature of the project. So that not you personally, but those who will make this decision will be very, in a couple of years, criticized why they did the decision, why they did. Prime Minister was making some hard decisions in your Prime Minister's times. So can you imagine that the politicians who will make decision next year about Dukovany, for example, will in 5 years face the critics? Why do you decided about the new nuclear power plant when there is some new technology emerging, or is it? How hard is it for a politician to make such a decision?
That goes to me?
That goes to you.
Yeah, I see. Well, that is very risky for any government, for any prime minister, any minister to do some decision. And that's risky that you will be criticized after 5 months, 5 years, after 10 years. But the worst thing you can do, it's not to decide. And looking around and just leave it anyway. So this is, and nuclear energy, we are coming, nuclear energy doesn't come from devil. I see, in my opinion, that's one of the cleanest energies which we can be confronted. I know that the debates which have been very tough within the European Parliament, within the Commission, and we were facing almost the situation that it was put also a bit among the dirty energies. Now the situation is getting better. That's some new light at the end of the tunnel, which is pretty good, that Europeans are coming to the, let's say, conclusion that it's not from devil. It could be put into the list of the clean energies. I know what was at stake and what was on the table at the center of the debate, where the debates have been focusing. That's the waste, of course, because the supporters of the people who upheld the approach based the putting the nuclear energy into the list of dirties, they were clearly talking, okay, we have no problems with energy itself, and we can see that there is a lot of security measures and safety measures, and I don't know what, technical improving, but we are sticking on the waste, which could be the problem. So it is, I can admit it, and all the activities on the global and the local level should be focused how to let's say, what to do with the waste in the could be said the best in the best way and the most secure way. On the other hand, let's say, I would like to stop now here that it's pretty summarizing. That's good. It's good news that nuclear energy is, let's say, approaching to be putting to the list of the clean energies, because I cannot imagine, let's say, to stop dealing with nuclear energy in this country, which depends in more than slightly over 1/30 of the whole or entire energy consumption or production, as you like it, on nuke. So if you look at it, so by the way, the strong debate in our neighborhood in Germany is now, let's say, coping with the return to nuclear energy. It will be a very complicated debate still. But what Angela Merkel did just 48 or 72 hours after Fukushima issue, that she decided about phasing out of the nuclear in stepwise way, of course, phasing out of nuclear capacities in Germany. It could be said that it is headache for Germany currently. So they are coming back to, let's say, reassess it, to redebate it.
Paní senátorko, dokážete si představit, že za 5-10 let vám někdo řekne, fajn, staví se tady jaderná elektrárna, ale tady vedle v Rakousku vyvinuli novou technologii solární a ta by nám mohla zajistit tu samou energii. Tenkrát jste podpořila rozhodnutí o stavbě jaderné elektrárny, ale dneska třeba řešíme, co s tím odpadem. Co budete říkat?
In favor of the nuclear power plant, and now that's perhaps not the right one. I have the advantage of a regional politician when I always had to justify my decisions. There were the periods of floods, periods of drought, and obviously, if you take a right decision, so people don't come back to thank you, but if this is the opposite, so they always appear. So right now, if we have an opportunity of having nuclear energy on the market, on our market, so we cannot think what might come in 10 years' time. So right now, we have an option of a big nuclear power station, so we will go for it. So we have no other way out. On this market, we have only this source, and we have to defend it. And if someone is not able to defend it, so perhaps he or she shouldn't be in the politics, but the safety, energy safety and security is a privilege of each and every country. I cannot imagine that we would lose such a privilege. It's very much about the security of supplies of energy. Mr. Fischer mentioned that perhaps if to do a public referendum on the question of nuclear energy, so I don't think that we could organize something like that in the Czech Republic. How many responsible people live in this country that would be really expert for taking a decision whether yes or no? So this year, our two power stations, Tamelin and Dukovany, helped us to save the entire Central Europe from the blackout. And we know that it actually happened, and you couldn't read it in the papers that we just saved the Europe, and that our power stations were saving the situation. But everybody else then say we are living on clean energy sources and we live on renewables, and it's not fair. Austria should admit, yes, they have a lot of renewables, but unless they couldn't use the nuclear power station in Dukovany, so they would have no energy. Renewables, that's correct, that's good. But I think that it should be part of the energy mix. We cannot fully rely on the renewables, you see, and obviously renewables should be here, but it's not the only one. Various accidents may happen in other countries, and therefore, renovations will be needed, and therefore we must have the nuclear energy. So within this region, we really appeal to all others to build a nuclear power station, and I, as a politician, I am in favor of this decision. We should build it, and this is the only solution now we have on the table.
Are we in the middle of technological revolution which will change from the technology perspective the energy landscape, or are we and I'm asking about the, for example, investment decisions of the private companies, how are you directed in your investment decisions when dealing with this kind of a big question?
I don't think we are in the middle of something, because I mean the sources are given. We are living in the Czech Republic. We just 2-3 months ago we put into operation a 115 megawatt solar power plant, not photovoltaic but concentrated solar power plant, which can operate also during the night because it has a huge storage of the energy in the liquid salt. But it was in the Atacama Desert. We don't have any Atacama Desert in the Czech Republic. We don't have any mountains like in Austria or the sea as in Northern Europe. So that's a reality we are living. So either we will continue burning our coal. Yes, we have some reserve maybe for next 30, 50 years. But the question is, what about the CO2 impacts and others? Or we will be dependent on the imported gas. But we cannot supply the energy, especially we talk about the electrical cars, the Volkswagen and Hyundai bringing. So the trend of the consumption of electricity goes up, and we cannot believe that the solar panels on the roofs of our houses will, save our lives. That's not reality. And then that's why, and as we also could hear from the senator, so we don't have any chance, to for any miracle, solutions at the moment. So I think it's clear. We may be thinking about what can come in 20, 40 years, whether the nuclear fusion is a future technology. But as of now, for the next 20, 30 years, this is the environment we have, and we have to live within that. So no any magical technical solution coming here.
Thank you. I would encourage the audience, if somebody wants to raise a question, then now or later on is a time, just raise your hand. I would go back to the note of Senator has mentioned about the human sources or human resources in our Czech nuclear industry. Ambassador, can you imagine the situation that hypothetically you win, your company, Korean company will win tender, and then the question emerge that there is not enough Czech experts to deal with the construction, to deal with the functioning or working of the plant. Would Korea help to raise the new generation of the experts? Would that be part of the possible package, or how would you solve this issue? Because it's and I would kind of subtitle that there is not of much interest of the, as far as I know, young Czech people into the complicated technical things. So this is part of the problem, not only in Czech Republic but generally in Europe, that there is a lack of pool of the people from which you could pick up enough experts. Or how do you solve this issue in Korea? Or you don't have this problem?
Unlike Americans and French, our KHNP, a Korean nuclear company, they established their office here in the Czech Republic more than 2 years ago. It means they are trying their best to meet the requirements of the Czech governments to have very high level of localization here in the Czech market. It means that you have the infrastructure, you have the educational structure to build the capacity of the new nuclear manpower here in the Czech Republic. So by doing that, all those kind of very good efforts on the part of the KHNP, they have concluded more than 80 MOU with the local Czech companies here. So it means that if we win the bidding process sometime soon, there are going to be very much mutual cooperation between the Korean companies and Czech companies. And then in terms of all these construction and operation and all those kind of the after service, after the end of the construction, there will be very good coordination and collaboration between the Czech and Koreans. So I don't think there would be any problem in having the right operation and right, the consolidation of these projects. And also you have very good universities and colleges who are focusing upon this nuclear option, and they are doing their best to raise the right capacity and the number of the people who can be doing their contributions to the nuclear industry or something like that. And now there are some R&D cooperation between KHNP because they have their educational institute, and there are some scholarship project and some exchange of the training personnel or something like that. So even if we win the bidding, there would be no problem at all for that kind of personnel or operational problem, I guess.
Prime Minister?
Thank you very much. On Sunday evening, I returned from Seoul, from South Korea, where we had a meeting of the sixth meeting of the Czech-Korean Forum for the Future, which is such a platform for exchanging the views on the strategic issues, and of course that the nuclear energy is involved in the program. And dean of the Faculty of Nuclear Engineering, Professor Jaký, was a part of the Czech delegation. And he displayed in his presentation very plastically the system of the and tradition and history of the Czech and former Czechoslovak education in the field of nuclear capacity building, nuclear energy exploiting, usage, and I don't know what. The Czech Republic is one of the best countries in the education of the experts in the field of nuclear energy, with a lot of experience, like say, international experiences. There is a lot of experts, they went through the universities, eastward, westward. And that's not just the nuclear energy that they are focusing on, and that's not just only the Faculty of Nuclear Engineering as a part of the Technical University here in Prague. There are some people doing excellent and having excellent results in Pilsen, in Brno. So I think that we don't need have any substantial or serious concerns about this, about the capacity, intellectual potential of the experts of this field. By the way, if we stop let's imagine it for a second, that we stop the debate about the nuclear energy here, one of the worst consequences would be the loss of this potential. So I think we don't need to have a consensus. Close your eyes and imagine that you start the debate about the building of the nuclear capacities in Poland, which is, by the way, reality, that they are looking around what to do anyway. And this is a lack of expert and expertise there. Objectively, that's no criticism towards Poland anyway, but that's the reality. So this is the let's say, landscape as looks in the Czech Republic and the Czech Republic universities, research institutes, science. And of course, the cooperation with KHNP experts and to, let's say, using of the, or exploiting your potential research and so on, that's part of solution, of course.
I know that to ask manager if there is enough skilled people is a kind of a stupid question at these times, but how do you see this specific capacity in Czech Republic?
So, as part of the Czech Power Industry Alliance, we prepared a roadmap which is available to all the bidders and then also as part of the web of the Ministry of Industry. So we prepared a roadmap within which we identified which part can be easily, or can be done, not easily, but can be done by the Czech companies, okay? This is clearly defined, and then yes, we can go up to 65–70% of the localization by using the Czech companies. So this is prepared, but what I want to say that, and then it's really important, any further delay in the tender emission will make the situation worse. I can compare the situation of the previous Temelín tender, which was 4 years back, and today's situation, and the trend is not positive, you see. So, I mean, any further delay, because we can hear now from the politicians and then so-called, experts that let's reconsider this and that, So any further delay will mean a losing of our capabilities to deliver the major part of the technology for the power plant. So it's really important and this one to pronounce.
Any question here? Do we have microphone somewhere?
Oh, it's not necessary.
We need it for translation.
My name is Eduard Hulicius. I'm working with Institute of Physics, Czech Academy of Science, and I would like to confirm and agree with your comment. I'm also teaching at the Faculty of Nuclear Science, and there is not only the Department of Nuclear Reactors, but also the dosimetry, the nuclear chemistry, and material engineering, as well as the other faculties like Faculty of Electrical Engineering. And I know from the attestment of these faculties and departments that very often there is more teachers than students. The number of students, it's not impressive. It's from 3 to 20 at the different departments. But they have several times more teachers there, prepared to teach much more students. So that's no problem. With the education and amount of these people prepared to work in the nuclear industry. And I would like also comment our neighbors Polish, which would like to buy at least 6 Westinghouse reactors. And this can be an advantage for Koreans, because if we add 2 or 3 the Westinghouse reactors to this activity, the Polish, it can be more interesting for Americans, more cheap maybe. And the other advantage of Koreans is that the Korea is not member of European Union, and French is a member of European Union. And the profit from the selling the reactor to Czech country can convert some profit from this to the Brussels money. So it can be in these calculations a little bit an advantage for Koreans. Objective, nothing against Korea. I like Koreans.
Thank you very much. As somebody who knows a thing or two about Poland, I can assure you that you would not be happy to join any Polish deal with anybody. So I know that the Korean company is also active in Poland. So maybe let's stay with the Polish case. Does it make sense for you from the Korean perspective, this, let's say, regional approach, trying to forget about my comments, because I know Poles too well that I would not recommend to do the deal on this triangle. But is this being considered on the Korean side as a kind of, because Westinghouse, it was actually Czech Senator Pavel Fischer who proposed to join this Polish Westinghouse deal, which Poles were surprised to hear from the Prague. So there is no, let's say at this moment, there is no way how to do that. But from the Korean perspective, does it make sense to this kind of regional approach?
Mm-hmm. We definitely know that our American and French friends, they are very, very competitive. And they have some advantage as their status of EU, as their status of, superpower. But we have very good, experience of collaboration with many nuclear leaders in this market. And in the case of UAE, as our first, case of export of our nuclear technology, actually we win the bidding finally, but in the construction and also designing, and finally the operation phase of our, their nuclear power in Duqobani. In UAE, there has been very good collaboration between Korean and American companies. Korean KEPCO and KHNP, and also the Westinghouse. So, and also if you look at the recent summit meeting between my president and President Biden in May, there has been a very, good achievements that will cooperate with each other in the third market, like here in the European continents. So I don't know if we'll finally win this bidding process in the Czech market, but if we win this bidding, there would be some collaboration even between Korean and American, even between Korean and French, but nobody knows who will be the specific form of the collaboration. But if anybody knows about some specificality about this nuclear market, there has been those kind of collaboration and cooperation. So I don't think, there would be any kind of problem at all for us to have such kind of collaboration also here in this Czech nuclear market.
Any other question? Back there.
Děkuji, Libor Kudláček, Eurofis. Já se omlouvám všem korejským hostům i hostitelům, ale moje otázka bude mířit do vlastních řad. Jestli se mohu zeptat paní senátorky, jestli ten váš názor, který já teda plně s ním souhlasím, že je nejvyšší čas,
by your political colleagues, is there any hope that the new government will continue at a sensible pace? It looks like it from the coalition agreement, but I'd just like to know if you can reassure me that this is indeed the case. I'll strive to be diplomatic. Thank you very much for the question. Recently, I listened to an interview with the hopefully future Minister of Industry and Trade. I'm a senator for Mayors and Independents, Stan, and well, from our club. I noted a bit of, saying that, well, there is not that much haste about Dukovany. And, well, I thought that the candidate was trying to be cautious, but, well, I'll definitely do my best to intervene. They know my opinion, so I'll push for the decision to be made as soon as possible, because we're already lagging behind. And let me respond to the education issue. In June, we had a V4. It was held online, and we discussed the energy sector. We had a discussion with colleagues from Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia, and we're also speaking about secondary school education. So it's not just about university-educated people working in the NPPs, but middle management is also vital. And I'm very pleased that in Třebíč we have the only secondary school with a dedicated energy specialist field of study. So if we look for a way of further cooperation between the V4, this could be a way forward. As you've mentioned, the Polish, well, they don't have any NPP. When they build an NPP, they will need a large number of experts. And, well, you can't just get these overnight. So in terms of education, I see great room for cooperation. I'll be more than happy if South Korea gets involved. They have a great team. They can pass on their experience to our people and raise them, so to speak. In NPPs, for instance, Dukovany requires some 2,000 employees plus subcontractors, contractors, etc. And we're lacking enough students of the technical fields of study. And again, it's this hesitation. Will there be the construction? Will there not be? And young people naturally decide what their future career is going to be, whether it's a promising career. So this dilly-dallying really is very negative. It may cause that as a result, we may not have enough students who will hesitate and rather choose a different field of study. So that's why I've mentioned HR. I don't think that our education system is not of high quality. No, not at all. But we need to have enough students starting from secondary schools.
I have seen another raised hand.
Václav Fučík, construction company Stavos Brno. I would like to react on the suggestions of Mr. Fischer and Mr. Ambassador, and that our industry is ready to cooperate with Korean companies. I think that it is also necessary to say that the construction of the nuclear power plant is very good for whole sector of whole region and many sectors of economies. It's not only energy sector, but also construction companies. And construction companies serve as living for many people in the region. It is also very important for Senator Mrs. Žáková from Třebíč region. And I would like to only say that as a manager of a construction company that worked in Dukovany for many years, we are ready to cooperate with anybody. And I think it's very important to decide for as many of us already said, it is a political decision, and we need political decisions, not only in energy sector, but also in epidemic. We need decisions, and we are too late in our decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is maybe the question for somebody else than our panel, but if somebody wants to react about the decision making. So, last question. Nobody? So then let me thank to our panel, to Ambassador Kim, Prime Minister Fischer, Senátorka Žáková, pan ředitel Procházka, for your participation in our discussion. It was a pleasure to meet you here at the Fórum, Fórum Hospodářských novin, and maybe sometime somewhere again. And let's hope that the decisions concerning the pandemic will be made. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.